everyone. Recently I went to Epcot for the Flower and Garden Festival and I saw this beautiful artwork all around World Showcase. I will put it on screen now. And I just loved it so much that I had to do something with it, so I decided on cookies. So that's what we'll be making for today. Okay, so Flower and Garden Festival is definitely my favorite of the Epcot festivals. Sorry, Food and Wine. I wanted to keep some of the festival fun going at home, and that's why I decided on these cookies. And the first thing we'll have to do to make those is start the dough. And to do that, we're going to whisk together the flour, the baking powder, salt, and some lavender flowers. You can use fresh or dried lavender flowers, and another easier way to do this is just use pre-made sugar cookie dough and add some of the lavender to it. And it's Flower and Garden Festival, so it had to have some sort of flowers in it, right? You could also use like a rose extract if you prefer that flavor to lavender, or leave it out altogether. So now I have to combine my butter and sugar and then add my egg and vanilla extract after beating these together on high for about a minute or two. Make sure your butter is softened as well, or it's not gonna cream together. Before we started filming, I just left it out for maybe an hour or so on the counter. Depends on how hot or cold it is where you live. And it doesn't need to be melted either, just almost room temperature. So butter, lots of sugar. And the butter is all nice and creamy, so we're also going to add our vanilla extract and our egg. And also just make sure that you scrape down the sides of the bowl while this is going. While the butter was creaming, I paused it to do that as well. Now I just have to mix my dry ingredients into my wet ingredients until it's just combined. We don't want to overwork it. And then our dough will be ready. Yeah, I knew I was gonna make a mess. That's what I was trying to avoid. Now that the dough is done, I'm going to roll out about a quarter or so of it at a time and put it on this parchment-lined baking tray, and then throw that in the fridge to chill for an hour or two before cutting out our cookies and baking them. Alright, and now that our cookie dough is out of the fridge, I'm just going to re-roll it to get it even, since I just kind of eyeballed it before to get it to cool. And I'm going to cut out my shapes and then pop them in the oven for about 11 to 12 minutes at 350. Flour your rolling pin. I should have done that before when rolling them out. I think that was probably one of my biggest mistakes. Alright, and now that the cookies are out of the oven and completely cooled, we just need to work on our frosting, which is going to be a royal icing, and all you need for that is powdered sugar, a flavoring of your choice, and some egg whites. And make sure the egg whites come from pasteurized eggs. This just means that they've been cleaned and pre-washed, since we're going to be using them raw. And the first thing we're going to do is just take these into the stand mixer and beat it on medium-low for about a minute or so until it gets frothy. Also, I recommend pre-separating them, not directly into this, in case one of the yolks breaks, because I had that issue before. Alright, and now that the egg whites are frothy, I'm just going to add in the powdered sugar and lemon extract. The powdered sugar I just went ahead and sifted so it doesn't make clumps in our icing, and the lemon extract, I just love lemon with lavender. And we're just going to add this to the stand mixer slowly until combined on low speed, and then once it's completely combined, flip it on high until it gets stiff peaks. Alright, and now that the icing is done and to a nice stiff peak, we're going to work on decorating them. But since this does dry super quickly, I'm going to do it in 2 batches. First with all of the yellows and whites of the cookies, and then make a second batch the exact same way to do the greens and the orange. Alright, and now I'm just going to divide and dye my frosting into my white and yellow, and I have some yellow gel food coloring to do that. And as well, just add maybe like a 1/4 teaspoon of water to each of them to thin it out to a outline consistency, and then add just a tiny bit more for a flooding consistency to fill this in, because this is very thick. That's about all I'm going to need for the white, since the only thing white on my cookies is going to be part of the lemon. Plus, I'm going to thin it out so it'll be even more. And this may not look like a lot, but this can decorate a lot of cookies. I'm still going to have some left over, especially since I'm making 2 whole batches. Also, since the food coloring is kind of like a liquid, before you thin it out any, add your food coloring first. So that way you don't make it too thin and then thin it out even more with your food coloring. And here's how the cookies turned out. I really did have a great time making them, and using the royal icing was definitely a challenge. This was only my second time ever trying to use royal icing, but I really do love how they turned out, and I really do think that anyone could make these. And that's it for the cookies, and this was the cutest way I could think of to present them for you guys. And I really hope you enjoyed the video half as much as I enjoyed making it, and thank you so much for watching. It's still flinging butter everywhere. Wow! Do that like TikTok sound, the of Princess Peach going, wow! Ta-da! Is it still recording? This whole time? Cue Eric Boss.